reach what many consider the dark ages of Iron Maiden, but it is really a new beginning. Before they would embark on their reunion and progressive era, they would not only tap into their untouched potential of their creative minds, but would have to embrace themselves in pure darkness. This is not only their most bleak album, but this could quite possibly be their most important to date, because the progression from this album and all the lessons they learned would better their future albums. Even though it is widely despised, the X Factor's sudden maturity with progressive songwriting and powerful lyrics and melodies gave birth to every Maiden album that followed. And the true believers that give this album a chance will see its importance and feel its magic as well. Bruce left Iron Maiden after the A Real Live One tour, disappointing several fans. Bruce then pursued a solo career. Steve was going through a very dark period. He just went through a divorce, and most of the fans were no longer backing him. Steve, being in a dark place, began writing melodic, dark, and epic Iron Maiden songs. He auditioned many singers to replace Bruce Dickinson, but Steve decided to go with a singer no one could have guessed. He chose Blaze Bayley from the British heavy metal band Wolfsbane. He had a very, very low register voice that can actually hit some high notes too, and it's believed that he actually has the same diversity and range as Bruce Dickinson, but in a lower area. And a lot of people hate him because of his singing voice, but this change would help to get them out of their rut so that they could try something new and different with a fresh perspective. The songs that Steve and the others wrote were very dark and progressive, but still Maiden. They took an entire year to write and record this album. They had to get a new producer because Martin Birch retired right after Fear the Dark. They had such a creative high that the band wrote pretty much 15 songs and only 11 of them would go on the album, making it 70 minutes long. Blaze and the other members of the band got along very well, especially Yannick Gers, who of which has great writing and soloing on this album. The production for this album was done by Nigel Green and Steve Harris, and the artwork, which was done by Hugh Syme, who did Rush album art, was very dark and realistic. They released Man on the Edge and Lord of the Flies as singles. When they completed the album, many fans did not like it. In fact, to this very day, it is slammed, mostly for the fact that Bruce Dickinson's not on it. They then embarked on the X Factor tour. All members were absolutely on fire, even though they had to play slightly smaller venues. Because they did not downtune for Blaze's deep voice, his voice had to strain a lot to reach high notes, especially on Bruce Dickinson's songs. They had to cancel several shows because of his vocal damage. This controversial Iron Maiden album is a masterpiece and a hidden gem, not only for its well-crafted songs and chemistry, but it had a special X factor to it. Now prepare your minds and souls for the shrouded plunge into part 2 of the Iron Maiden discography, their 10th album, The X Factor. Why are these fucking lights off? Okay, so there's a lot to talk about with Iron Maiden's The X Factor, so let's get right into it. It came out in 1995, in the mid-90s when metal was pretty much dead. Iron Maiden were doing decent at this point, but after this album, the fan base would pretty much abandon them for the most part. The artwork is actually pretty cool on this one. There's 2 different versions because one of them's pretty gory, because the first one is like Eddie being ripped in half and tortured and stuff, which is kind of like what they did on Peace of Mind. So I actually do like the other alternative artwork a little bit more, where Eddie is on an electric chair. Now, like I said, there was a lot of stuff that went on in the band, and they were pretty much going through dark times. So the music pretty much reflects that. A lot of these songs are very brooding, dark, all have like really slow intros for the most part, that all get like really epic and heavy and personal at points. And a lot of people consider this the worst Iron Maiden line because of Blaze Bayley, but I think Blaze Bayley delivers a pretty good vocal performance on this album. My only gripe is that there's 1 or 2 points where his voice is a little off key, and there's a couple parts where he could have hit like a really good yell, but he just kind of stays monotone. Yannick Gers is also something to talk about because he's usually pretty terrible, but on this album he's actually not bad. He works really well with Dave Murray, and the chemistry is very well there. Steve Harris's bass playing is top notch here. There's even a bass solo somewhere. Nico McBrain, and I kind of want to also talk about the production right here too, because Nico's drumming on here is very good. In fact, there's even an odd time signature on a couple songs that sound very, very cool and hard to follow. But his drum sound is really bad on this album. It sounds very poppy, especially like, not like poppy like pop music, but like has this really bad popping sound to it, especially with like the snare drums and the bass drums. The production is very, very thin on this album, which is one of my biggest gripes. The music is very good at points and very personal points, but if you want people to get your like somewhat boring music, you have to at least have some good epic bombastic production, but the production is very, very thin. From Fear of the Dark, they gave way to this song called Afraid to Shoot Strangers, and from that song pretty much birthed almost every song on this album. They all stylistically follow that type of idea. And also on this album they have a lot of longer songs. Even if they aren't really that epic, they have a lot of, you know, aspirations for prog on this album. So it really is very influential to everything they had released after. There's also a lot of chorus repeats, which begun a lot on this album. So it's really the archetype of every album afterwards. So we start with one of my absolute favorite Iron Maiden songs, Sign of the Cross, which is the epic on the album, which is really weird to start the album with the epic, but who gives a shit? The epic is awesome. The intro is super ambient. You have a lot of Gregorian chants, and then you go into this ambient part that has this amazing guitar line and Blaze's really beautiful dark singing. They keep building up with this really ambient sounding guitar duets between Yannick and Dave. Now we get into the song, and this song has some incredible heavy riffs to it. It reminds me a little bit of Rime of the Ancient Mariner, but I'd say that it's kind of done better in some ways. Blaze sounds really great here. His voice is ferocious. My only problem with this whole section of the song is that they've played this song live a couple times, and every time they played it live it was so much faster and it sounded so much better. It just sounds way too slow. But that chorus is amazing. Blaze's vocals there are incredible, and then you have the amazing guitar melody that I believe it's Dave plays that. It's one of my favorite Iron Maiden guitar melodies. And then you go to this really crazy bass-driven part that's just like... There's all these great changes until you get to the middle part where you have the Gregorian chants again, and it's really dark, and they're playing a different riff this time that sounds incredibly sinister. And you know you're in for business when it comes in with the most technical part of the entire song. It's kind of a standard riff that sounds really badass and catchy and sinister, like I said. But what Nico does is he like makes it an odd time signature that every like 4 measures he speeds up the drum fill or something. It's really bizarre. I can't even explain it. You would have to hear it. And then that builds up to one of my favorite parts in the song where it sounds like this really epic build-up. And then you have Dave Murray playing this incredible lead melody that sounds really evil. And then it goes into like this really random turn. It goes from really dark and creepy to all of a sudden really happy and really, really fast and up-tempo. The guitar soloing and guitar riffs in this whole section are really great. The first guitar solo being Dave, which is just speed shredding. The second one being Yannick, which is sloppier shredding. But then you get to this one part that sounds kind of like a crowd participation part, if you get what I'm saying, where Blaze or Bruce could just say like, everyone come on, jump or clap or something, you know what I mean? Easily the best song off the whole album, and one of my favorite Iron Maiden songs. I'd put it in the top 3 easily. It's very, very unsung. Then we have Lord of the Flies, another amazing song, and it's what really got me interested in this album. The guitar riff in the intro is just so bizarre. It's Yannick playing this really weird melody. I've never really heard a guitar riff like this that Yannick plays in the intro, but that goes into this really catchy, awesome riff that's super heavy. And I believe Yannick wrote this whole song by himself. I think Blaze maybe contributed some lyrics here and there, but when Blaze comes in with his vocals, I instantly fell in love. I was like, why do people bash this guy? This song itself sounds amazing. Like even the part where he starts singing lower in the pre-chorus where he's like, I like to live my life in danger or something like that. He sounds really good there. And that chorus is amazing where he's saying saints and sinners, something willing us to be Lord of the Flies. That's one of the points on the album that I think maybe he could have done a little bit more with. But Bruce has pretty much proven when he sung this live that when you try to hit high notes in the chorus, it sounds like absolute ass. And I think it's an all-time classic on this album. It really is unsung. And Yannick's guitar solo on it's surprisingly good, and I love the way he transitions from that solo to like the new end chorus, where he's playing this amazing lead melody and Blaze is saying, ho 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 ho. Then we get to Man on the Edge, another song written by Yannick and Blaze. This song is about the movie Man on the Edge, and I think it has to do with like a guy that was like trying to jump off a building or some shit. This one and Lord of the Flies have pretty cool music videos, especially this one, where it shows like a bunch of people, CGI, people like falling off buildings. It's pretty weird. This one is easily the most punchy, fast, cool, kick-ass, classic sounding Iron Maiden song in the whole album. And this one I would say maybe would be more suited for Bruce, but I definitely do think Blaze does a great job with the song, especially in the chorus. He sounds really, really great there. Now the chorus repeats itself a little too much, where he's saying, falling down, falling down, falling down. But I think it actually works. I think he sings it with enough passion, enough power, the song's fast enough, it's so catchy enough. A song that also has an incredible guitar solo duet between Yannick and then Dave. They just complement each other so well. We get Fortunes of War, which is one of the more epic songs in the album. It's very long, about like almost 8 minutes or something. It's about soldiers coming back from the war with PTSD, so it's like the Fortunes of War is that they come home, their head is fucked up, and they can't get any help, and I think this is where the fillers kind of start on this album. I do like Fortunes of War, don't get me wrong, but the next 3 songs are very, very, very boring to me in ways. Now look, I love a lot of sections of Fortunes of War. In fact, I actually think, to me, it's overall a good song, in my opinion, just the way I like. But I could see where this is kind of a shitty song. The intro's very slow and drawn out, and I kind of like the build-up to it, but it is kind of unnecessary. Because they already have another intro that comes later, which is absolutely one of my favorite parts of the song, when the drums start pounding ferociously, and Dave plays this like, or it's Yannick, I can't remember, plays this like incredible lead guitar melody. That's one of my favorite Iron Maiden sections ever. And I love the keyboard work that comes in later during that section. And even the verse sounds really badass. The riffs in there are really great and pretty different. And Blaze even sounds really good there. He sounds mellow, he sounds like fierce and low, but he sounds like he means business. But then we come to what makes the song kind of boring, other than the drawn out intro, and the drawn outness of the song is the chorus is generic. He's just saying, Fortunes of War, Fortunes of War, Fortunes of War. But then, hey, we get True to do a pretty cool middle section where everything gets really sped up, but it kind of sounds weird. I don't know what it is about it. The drumming in there sounds really great. I think it's just the bass sounds really clunky in this part. The guitar solos are really, really cool here. We have one from Yannick and then right after one from Dave that complement each other perfectly. I even like the fast chorus right here where, you know, Blaze says, Fortunes of War, Fortunes of War, over and over and over. You know, then of course you have to have a reprise of Fortunes of War. It's like you can't get enough Fortunes of War. Then we have my absolute least favorite song on the album, Look for the Truth. The only part I like probably is the middle section where Yannick pretty much drives this whole part. It's really good. There's some really great guitar melodies in there. And I really like the epic feel of it. They should have just taken some of the riffs in this middle section, put it on a different song. But the intro's dull as fuck. Oh god, is this song ever gonna get into it? When it gets into it, all you get is oh, over and over and over and over and over again, like they're trying to make like a live sort of staple song. Then we have probably the last full-on filler, what I'd consider the fillers on this album, The Aftermath. Now, I used to love The Aftermath, but it feels kind of pointless. This is pretty much in the same vein of Fortunes of War, but this song's about what happens after a war and stuff like that. And this one is significantly more boring. It's very long too. It's not like 7 minutes or anything. But this one starts with a really cool melodic intro. You feel like, oh, maybe we're gonna get like this really cool melodic passion song, like Children of the Damned or something. But you get into the main parts of the song, the verse and the chorus. It's this slow, monotonous riff, and sings decent in the verse, but the chorus just sounds dumb. It's like Steve wrote most of the lyrics on some of these songs, and you could tell, especially in this song, it's just way too wordy and bizarre, and already wordy and bizarre. However, it does get saved a little bit, because the later chorus that they have sounds really good, where Blaze is singing some really passionate notes. They repeat that a couple times, but I think it's done tastefully. Then the song gets really interesting. It's like they were just taunting you with boring shit. Now we're going to get to something good, because you have this really bizarre, fast bass riff, and Blaze is singing some really passionate stuff, and then all of a sudden you get this really great, furious note that's like he's trying to be like Bruce Dickinson, and he screams, "I'm just a soldier," and the song goes in this crazy, frantic guitar solo section. It's just Yannick, and he's playing one of the best solos of his career. It's very, very fast and shreddy, but it works incredibly here. And then it goes to this really great lead guitar melody. Now we're getting significantly better songs. We got Judgment of Heaven. Now the worst thing I could say about this song is the intro is absolutely fucking bizarre. And it's one of the weirdest intros I've ever heard, especially for a song about killing yourself. It sounds like super happy and like a major scale, and it only gets really good when the like heavy guitars come in. And they kind of start playing that intro, but like more heavy, and it sounds kind of decent. Like, oh, we're gonna get something pretty cool, and then it goes in that awesome verse. It's like the first parts were just merely an intro. Now we're getting into the real shit, and this verse is awesome. It sounds like classic kick-ass Maiden, like Man on the Edge. I love the chorus. It's like super beautiful and like personal. And the song just keeps getting better. It goes to this middle section that has this incredible Dave Murray solo. And then it goes in one of my favorite sections on the album. I like to call it like the final chorus in the song or something. It's just incredible, where Dave's playing this really great melody, and then Blaze says, "All of my life I have believed the judgment of heaven awaits for me." There's even some really great melodic parts after that too. It's just a really decent kick-ass Maiden song, but that intro does suck. Then we go into one of my favorite Iron Maiden songs, and one of my favorites off the album. It's so underrated. This one is called Blood on the World's Hands. And this one is just about like atrocities and stuff all over the world and stuff, like wars. And this begins with like a bass solo intro. And then when the song gets into it, there's some really great riffs all over the place, and the guitar melodies are great. Blaze is yelling furiously, and he sounds a little bit weird at first in the verse, but I think he corrects himself to where he's like following the song almost like Bruce did, where he was super passionate, like following these spider webbing all over the place guitars. And I absolutely love the chorus where they're playing this awesome badass riff. They say, "It's out of control, blood on the world's hands." And I absolutely love the part when it goes to the middle section. They play this really dark riff, and they have keyboards on top of it, so it sounds even better. The middle section's really cool. They go through all these classic Iron Maiden transitions and some really great solos. First you have a great Dave solo and a lesser good Yannick solo, but then it returns to some really great shit. And there's just great riffs all over the place. And I love at the end when Blaze keeps shouting "blood on the world's hands," and then right at the end of that he does this yell, and they play that like really dark riff again with the keyboards. Another amazing song, and really, really underrated. And speaking of underrated, amazing songs, Edge of Darkness. This could have been like an epic song or something. They could have had this an epic on any album. It sounds very epic. The guitar work, everything is epic. They could have just expanded the song a little bit. This could have been like a really good epic on Virtual 11 or something. This one is about the movie Apocalypse Now, but the song title has to do more with the book that movie's based on, called The Heart of Darkness. So the Edge of Darkness has a lot of great sampling in the beginning. You hear helicopters fly by and stuff. Now my biggest problem has to do with the song is that the lyrics are so wordy that they steal lines from the movie. Like most of the lyrics of the song are just straight up lines from the movie. So it's very mellow and really dark and brooding. But then when it gets right into the riffs are really epic and Blaze's singing is so passionate and furious. And I think this may be his best vocal performance on the whole album. Then it starts getting faster, more like Hallowed Be Thy Name or something like that. There's some incredible melodies all over the place. You have a great soul from Yannick and then a great one from Dave. And I love it when Blaze comes in, he says like, now I hold the knife in my hand, now I understand why the genius must die. And one of my favorite songs of the whole album. It is incredible, I just wish it was longer. Now we go to one of the most interesting songs on the album, 2 AM, which is sort of like a melodic ballad of sorts. This one is very personal. It's like a midlife crisis sort of song, I guess you could say. And it's just questioning, why are we here? What's our purpose? It's the answer to life, death, stuff like that. And I think it's like the perfect way of summarizing a dark album like this. Like, what the fuck is the point? And I think this song is very underrated. A lot of people seem to think this is like the worst song in the album. But there's nothing really bad about it. I mean, it's melodic and slow, and a lot of people try to say that like lyrics are cheesy. Like it's about a guy that, oh, why am I living? I'm sitting in home with a beer. What makes the song great is the writing here is incredible, especially on the second verse. It sounds incredibly melodic, and Blaze is singing on the chorus. It's amazing. Here I am again, look at me again. Here I am again on my own. And the middle section's amazing. There's some really great melodies. And the guitar solos are stunning. And it adds so much more dark and beautiful atmosphere. And believe it or not, Yannick plays the solo here. So it's a lot like Wasting Love, where it's a beautiful melodic song that I believe he also helped write. And he just somehow works so much more here. He sounds incredible and really helps the song. Then we have the final song on the album, The Unbeliever, one of the epic songs on it, and one of the most bizarre and original Iron Maiden songs. They have nothing that sounds like this. The intro sounds really epic and cool. It's like, oh shit, we're gonna get a really cool conclusion to this album. And then it goes into a really bizarre verse where, like, everything is following this bizarre tempo. And I definitely say Blaze leads this section because he sounds like so fierce and angry. But where it gets really good is the pre-chorus, where you have some really great acoustic guitar work, and get to that chorus where Blaze is screaming like he's singing just as good as Bruce Dickinson on some of his other songs, with Iron Maiden, some of his best performances. This is really, really good Blaze right here. And then it goes into, after like one of the best Iron Maiden choruses ever, goes into a really bizarre middle section that reminds me a little bit of Alexander the Great. Just like slow tempo galloping and shit. But it goes into some really cool guitar solos. First it's Yannick, then Dave, and then go into some crazy, more fast parts that are really badass. I mean, you could argue that the song's too long, but the fact that they keep playing the amazing chorus and doing all these different variations of that, as opposed to spending more time on instrumental sections, I think works to this song's advantage. Blaze's singing is astoundingly good on this song. That's X Factor. There's a couple of weak moments, but honestly, it is a very overlooked classic with some incredible stuff on it.